You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
In the El Paso Mountains, north of the town of Garlock in California's Mojave Desert, there is a tunnel that feels less like a mining project and more like a private epic. It is called the Burro Schmidt Tunnel, and it runs for about 2,000 feet through solid rock. Its builder, William Henry Schmidt, known almost universally as Burro Schmidt, worked on it largely alone, using hand tools, drilling steel, a single jackhammer, black powder, and stubborn persistence. The tunnel is roughly 7 feet high and wide enough for a person, a wheelbarrow, or a small ore cart to pass through. What makes it remarkable is not just its size, but the fact that one man spent more than 3 decades forcing a passage through a mountain in one of the harshest landscapes in the United States. Schmidt was born in Rhode Island in the 19th century and drifted west during the great era of mining camps and mineral speculation. Like many men of that period, he followed the promise of ore into remote country. By the early 1900s, he had claims in the El Paso Range. The standard version of the story says he began the tunnel in 1906 to move gold ore from one side of the mountain to a mill on the other, avoiding a long and difficult trip over the ridge. That explanation is reasonable enough at first. In mining country, reducing transport time could mean the difference between profit and failure. But the longer Schmidt worked, the less convincing that simple explanation became. A practical access at it turned into a life's work. He drilled by hand, set charges, blasted rock, hauled spoil, and then repeated the cycle day after day. He also built small structures near the site, including a cabin and support buildings, because the work was so isolated. Visitors later recalled that he had a methodical way about him. He was not charging ahead wildly. He was aligning the tunnel carefully, maintaining grade, and somehow managing to emerge on the far side after decades of work with impressive accuracy. When he finally broke through in the late 1930s, after about 32 years, the tunnel connected one side of the ridge to the other exactly as intended. Even people who doubted the mining rationale had to admit the engineering achievement. That question of motive has followed the tunnel ever since. Historians and desert enthusiasts have pointed out that the ore in Schmidt's claim was never rich enough to justify such labor. Perhaps the tunnel gradually stopped being about mining and became about proving that he could finish what he started. In that sense, the tunnel belongs to a long American tradition of solitary projects that drift beyond utility into obsession, craftsmanship, and identity. It has more in common with outsider art, homemade observatories, and hand-built desert compounds than with a normal business plan. The Mojave is full of such stories, though they are usually scattered in fragments. But Schmidt left something more coherent. His tunnel is one of the clearest surviving monuments to the labor of a lone desert miner. It also sits in a region layered with unusual history. Not far away are the remains of the once busy mining settlement of Randsburg, and farther south lies the strange, dry basin of Keene Lake. This is a landscape where 20th century industry, Cold War testing culture, and private eccentricity all brushed against each other. But the nearby Mojave has long attracted people with plans that seemed improbable at first. In recent years, the tunnel has remained a point of fascination for preservationists and explorers of California desert history. It is on private property, but the tunnel is not a theme park reconstruction. It still conveys the physical scale of one person's labor. Walking into it, the air cools quickly, the light narrows, and the walls show the marks of drilling and blasting, the direct record of effort, not an interpretation of it. There is also something unexpectedly modern about the story. News coverage of remote places in the American West often turns toward wildfire, drought, lithium, solar development, or land use battles. The Burro Schmidt Tunnel offers another angle on the desert. As a place where individuals have left intensely personal infrastructure behind. It reminds us that the West was not shaped only by giant corporations and federal projects. By the time Schmidt finished the tunnel, the era that had produced him was already fading. Automobiles, better roads, and changing economics had remade mining country. Yet he had kept going, long after the work stopped making obvious sense to others. So it is a completed act of will, cut straight through a mountain by a man who seems to have exchanged the original purpose for the discipline of finishing. In the Mojave, where so much history is broken, buried, or blown away, that kind of completion feels almost shocking.